For decades, GSEs like Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac have been the gatekeepers of the mortgage market, ensuring that everyone has access to lending, regardless of the neighborhood or the color of their skin. Yet, we seem to have forgotten what a long and bitter struggle it took to achieve this, and now the protection they provide is on the verge of being destroyed. After years of fighting, the civil rights victories of the 60s and 70s enabled African Americans to obtain traditional mortgages for the first time. The rules that banks used to deny loans to African Americans were declared unconstitutional, and laws were passed that made equal access to housing a fundamental mission of the GSEs. This allowed African Americans to move from neighborhoods and urban dwellings to the white suburbs. Many didn't like that, and many still don't. In response, throughout the 90s, a group called FM Watch, financed by the big banks and sponsored by Republicans, launched a massive and deceitful PR campaign aimed at destroying Fannie and Freddie. The campaign paid off as President Bush took a number of steps that allowed the big banks to ignore the fair lending requirements of the GSEs and unleash a wave of predatory loans across America, setting up the foreclosure crisis that has shaken Black and brown neighborhoods to the core. The effort culminated in September of 2008 when President Bush and Hank Paulson took over Fannie and Freddie, making a final attempt to kill the GSEs before he left office. Just like the borrowers they've protected for decades, the GSEs were forced to take an unnecessary, targeted, predatory loan with terms that ensured it could never be repaid. Since the takeover, the big banks have used their influence over the Treasury Department to try and end the GSEs altogether, gaining unopposed control of the entire mortgage market. And in 2012, President Obama inexplicably agreed to go along with the plot. In spite of the opportunity afforded to communities of color by Fannie and Freddie, the president's base, the Obama Treasury, seized all of the earnings of the GSEs, ensuring that even though Congress made critical reforms that make the GSEs more accountable, Fannie and Freddie would never be allowed to repay their loans and return to their critical duties. A coalition of civil rights groups have called for the White House to release Fannie and Freddie. The administration claims that Congress must act to release the GSEs, but that's simply not true. The president could simply order the Treasury to stop taking Fannie and Freddie's earnings, allow them to build capital, and continue to grow the middle class. These are true democratic ideals. We must urge President Obama to stand up for communities of color and credit-worthy borrowers on this issue. We cannot leave GSE reform to big bank cronies.